India and the United States can be the arsenals of democracy in the Eastern and Western hemispheres. The world is watching. This is only the third state visit from India to the United States. It is a big deal. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is coming here. The whole country and city are excited and buzzing. If you look at the initiative on critical and emerging technologies, that is, to me, as important as the nuclear deal. One thing I love about India and America that drives me and motivates me is that we are two of the greatest democracies on earth. What I want to do is have a curtain-raising celebration for Prime Minister Modi's visit.
What could be the key deliverables from this trip? What are your impressions of this upcoming visit? And any key insights that you can share at this point?
So let's keep in mind that this is only the third state visit by an Indian visitor, an Indian leader to the United States in all of the history of our relationship. President Radhakrishnan came here on the first state visit from India in 1963. Dr. Manmohan Singh came in 2009 for a state visit, and this is just the third. So this is a really big deal in the way that the United States treats honored visitors diplomatically, and state visits are reserved for our closest friends.
What is the effort that you're seeing from the U.S. side when it comes to this important visit? A lot is going on at the back end, fixing the whole nuts and bolts for this visit. What do you see?
Well, let's keep in mind that for the last 25 years, our two countries have been on a path of strategic, economic, and now technological convergence. We used to have a very difficult relationship back in the days when I joined the Foreign Service. Now I'm a pensioner and our relationship is fantastic, probably because I retired. But take the long view. We are now Quad partners together. We now are working on bringing the industrial convergence of our two great societies together to ensure that the deep tech and future tech of the 21st century is developed and designed by Americans and Indians for the happiness and prosperity of all of the free people of the world. That's a big deal. And I think that's what's going to be talked about at the state visit. We have a shared strategic perspective across the Indo-Pacific. We have a lot that we're doing together already, but there is so much more we can do strategically, economically, technologically.
A lot has moved over these years. I mean, you as a diplomat saw it very closely, and then, of course, in your new portfolio, you're seeing that too from the economic front. What were some of the suggestions or discussions that the two countries should actually go through and do things differently in this visit?
So I think we are doing things differently. If you look at the initiative on critical and emerging technologies that we helped launch here at the U.S. Chamber back in January with Secretary of Commerce Gina Raimondo and with the two national security advisors, Jake Sullivan and Ajit Doval, that is, to me, as important as the nuclear deal. It is as consequential strategically as the nuclear deal. And so we have actually innovated in a very important way. Our two governments, our two free societies have learned the lessons of the pandemic, and they realize that we have to have secure, stable supply chains, especially on the deep tech and future tech that our free citizens will rely on across the 21st century.
A lot of importance is being given to the defense front when it comes to ties between the two countries. How should the two countries overcome, solidify this defense partnership between the two countries?
That's a great question. I think a lot has been achieved over the past 20 years. If you look at the record between our two countries of how much we do together, but there's so much more we can do to ensure a free and open Indo-Pacific. We already have our chiefs of defense staff now discussing things, not only bilaterally, but in a Quad context. I think that's very helpful. There's obviously a lot of talk about potential fighter engine collaboration that may come out of this summit. We applaud that. USIBC has an Aerospace and Defense Committee that is very pleased to be hosting the Indus-X that is being organized by the Ministry of Defense in India and the Department of Defense in the United States to intensify collaboration between the defense industries in both of our countries. And I think that is the need of the hour. If you look at the pandemic and the lessons it has taught us, and you look at recent geostrategic events, the free world needs to ensure a very robust deterrence. India and the United States can be the arsenals of democracy in the Eastern and Western hemispheres, ensuring strength, and through strength we deter any potential conflict.
Right. You talked about the deal, the GE deal. How optimistic are you about this deal? Do you think that could be one of the key deliverables in this trip?
Well, let's see what happens. Let's see what the two governments can arrange. I know that they're working very hard. They are deeply invested in ensuring that we can take our defense and technology relationship to the next level. The world is watching. This is only the third state visit from India to the United States. It is a big deal. A big honor for the government and people of India. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is coming here. The whole country and city are excited and buzzing. Here at the chamber at USIBC, we're buzzing about it. We're working night and day on our own Ideas Summit, June 12 and 13, and also on whatever happens on the margins of the state visit. So I think both governments are putting full effort in. We're in constant contact with both governments, and I applaud them. I think they're focusing on the important things, and I wish them great success.
Right. What is the economic future between the two countries, and do you think enough is being done and a lot can be achieved in this visit?
Well, I think a lot is being done, and I have always articulated that we should attain a goal of $500 billion in trade and investment between our two countries. If we do that, that means India's GDP is rising. It means that there's health, wealth, and prosperity between both of our free peoples. So we're at about $190 billion right now. We urgently need to get to about $500 billion, and we need to take the policy steps and initiatives to break through restraints and make sure that our companies and our leading collaborators can work together to get to $500 billion. I think we can do it. It requires ambition, it requires vision, it requires dedication by both governments.
Right. Like I said earlier, India-US relations have gotten deeper, and when we talk about deepening these ties, on one side, you also have these reports about human rights violations in India. The State Department releases a report, and there's a lot that's talked about back in India. Do you think that the business leaders or the business community overall have concerns about human rights in India?
Well, first of all, I am a retiree now, so you should talk to the State Department and the U.S. government about these things. But I'll say just a couple things based on my decades of experience with these issues. Number one, Congress passed a law that requires the State Department to write these reports. And we are a nation of law, and we must comply with the law. The fact is that we as a society, being a free people, hold up a mirror to ourselves as well. And if you look at all of the news and reports in the United States over the past few years, you can see that we do a lot of transparent introspection about all of our problems as well. One thing I love about India and America, that drives me and motivates me, is that we are two of the greatest democracies on earth. We are some of the most diverse societies on earth. We are some of the most inclusive societies on earth. And each of our societies is working, striving toward forging a more perfect union. And so when we hold up that mirror to ourselves, it reminds us that we have work to do, but we should also celebrate what we've achieved. Decades, if not centuries in our case, of uninterrupted civilian government. Peaceful transfers of power, rule of law, empowerment of the citizenry. I believe those are the basic components that the U.S. and India share together, and it's going to propel us toward leadership across the 21st century in an amazing way.
Right. My last question about the summit, the upcoming summit at the Chamber. Could you tell us something more about it?
Sure.
What could be the key takeaways from this summit?
So we have our India Ideas Summit on June 12 and 13. We have a whole host of U.S. and Indian officials coming to talk to our board, our sponsors, and our 200-plus member companies. Those 200 companies represent trillions of dollars in market value. They are the leaders in innovation, in managerial excellence, in ethical comportment, in environmental standards. They have helped build the modern world and the prosperity we all enjoy, especially the technology-fueled prosperity. So we're bringing all of them together for our annual summit, just like we did in September in New Delhi last year. And what we want to do is have a curtain-raising celebration for Prime Minister Modi's visit. And we want to ensure that the world knows about all of the positive energy that is happening in the U.S.-India relationship between our peoples, between our governments, between our corporate institutions, and between, frankly, all of the people who innovate to build the modern world.
Right. And during the visit also you're going to be having some engagements with the government?
Oh, sure. Let's see what happens. In the nature of these things, government planning often comes down to the wire. I worked on 2 or 3 presidential visits to India and a couple of prime ministerial visits here, and it's always like this. So stay tuned.
Oh, thank you so much for talking to me, and I appreciate it.
What a pleasure.